What's up, everybody? Welcome to the second episode of Vibes-Based Drafting. It has been a minute. We are back. We are going to do a bit of a play and explain today, featuring 2024 pre-draft best ball on Underdog Fantasy. Little known fact about me, I am a cash game grinder here on Underdog, so I love to play these isolated 12-team leagues. It's not a better return on investment necessarily, but easier to realize your edge. So we're picking from the 4 slot here. Now, my pre-draft ranks here by ADP, Justin Jefferson goes at the 104 right now. So I'll probably be looking to take Justin Jefferson. Ecstatic to take Hill or Lamb if they fall to me. But let's get our rankings pulled up here. So these pre-draft best ball drafts are very interesting right now. ADPs are all over the place. I do have some strong stands in the first couple of rounds, some particularly strong fades, some particularly strong flag plants that I love to draft. So it's looking like we're going to get Justin Jefferson here at 104. Not terribly bothered by the potential uncertainty for Justin Jefferson at quarterback. I would, if I had to pick a favorite to be back at quarterback. I spoiled it by saying back, but Kirk Cousins, I think, will be back at quarterback for the Vikings. So I would bet on Kevin O'Connell continuing, regardless of who's at quarterback, to feature a high volume passing attack. Definitely from that Sean McVay tree as far as his coaching philosophy is concerned. Yeah, I think Justin Jefferson will be a solid pick once again for 2024 fantasy football. So Chase goes at 105. Right now I've completed my first run of projections, and I don't know. I find myself pretty low on the Bengals, pretty low on Jamar Chase, which is a scary place to be. Definitely don't want to be going around fading Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow. But there were some serious cracks on display last year. Joe Burrow was hurt for some of that. It's very difficult to tell when he was hurt and when he was healthy. Making that distinction could be a make or break flag plant for fantasy football this year. Personally, I have been leaning in other directions when it comes to the Bengals. So we see here Jamar Chase, Breece Hall. Love Breece Hall this year. I think he deserves to be a first-round pick. Whether or not Aaron Rodgers is going to be with it and healthy as a 40-year-old starting quarterback, I think there's some serious risk there. We see Garrett Wilson go at the 111. My projections have Garrett Wilson as wide receiver 8. I'm very nervous to have him that high, but we saw the usage last year where we saw him be that 30% target share player, that alpha wide receiver 1 who, if he just gets reasonably competent quarterback play from Aaron Rodgers, we could see very big things from Garrett Wilson this coming season. Kyren Williams is a consensus sharp fade, I think, just from what I've seen on Twitter and from other sources, from other content creators. The argument against him is basically that he wouldn't see a positive increase in his ADP if he survives the draft without any competition. But I just disagree with that. I think that if Kyren Williams makes it to September with Ronnie Rivers as RB2 on the depth chart, we could be looking at CMC light on the Rams with Matthew Stafford, Puka Nacua, Cooper Kupp. I think that's a very high-powered situation that proved to be very plentiful for fantasy points this past season. So we're coming up on the clock here. Josh Allen will be a slam dunk pick here for me. I'll be pretty upset if we don't get to take Josh. So that's unfortunate. So I am very high on Stephon Diggs. I'm not buying the washed narrative here. I do think Saquon Barkley has a good chance of landing in a very good spot. We're going to go Diggs here, though. Just structurally, I think that there are decent enough running back values late and in these underdog drafts. If you've drafted on underdog before, that you're accustomed to the wide receiver runs and the avalanche of wide receivers going tearing off the board. So definitely want to stay out ahead of that. And I'm comfortable reaching on Diggs. You're welcome to point out the irony of my username, you best not reach, because generally speaking, once we get to the summer and ADP is much more accurate, it's generally a very bad idea to reach in these underdog drafts, just because people putting real money on the line tends to sharpen the ADP so much. Yeah, I am an ADP bro, but this time of year it's okay to live a little. We are living a little here with Diggs at pick 21. So we're cruising along here. Saquon would have been my other choice. Be very happy to get Saquon here. Wouldn't mind ETN, wouldn't mind Dell. Tank Dell is an interesting guy. If you guys might have seen the interview where CJ Stroud was building his dream offense and he put out Jamar Chase out wide, Devontae Adams out wide, and he picked Tank Dell as his slot receiver. So that was interesting to see that that's their shower narrative there. But Saquon does fall. I have Saquon still as top 5 running back in my projections for next year. I do think that he will have significant receiving volume, and no matter where he lands, he will be one of the highest volume running backs in the NFL. It'll be hard to go to a lower scoring situation than the Giants this past season. One of the worst offenses in the league with Tommy DeVito, Daniel Jones before his injury was awful. So we could see a situation where Saquon lands with the Chargers. We could see him with the Ravens potentially. We could see him with the Texans. There are tons of very desirable free agent landing spots and not a whole lot of highly touted rookies coming in this year at the running back position. So this could be a decent year, I think, to bet on these veteran running backs who are hitting free agency, the Saquon Barkleys, the Josh Jacobs, the Derrick Henrys of the world. Travis Etienne goes. I'm also very above market on Etienne. I have him running back 6. I think people were very scared off by the poor efficiency that was on display for Travis Etienne, below 4 yards per carry. But we saw the volume there. We saw Tank Bigsby came in and had one of the worst rookie running back seasons of all time. That was a huge miss for me last year in my process. I just looked at seeing they took this guy on day 2. That's a significant investment in running back in the modern NFL. Figured they'd use him. Turns out he's terrible. Travis Etienne is, to me, looking like a good candidate for some positive efficiency regression next year. Should get to around that 60 target mark pretty handily. So I think probably as a receiver, Etienne has been fairly disappointing compared to at least what his college profile suggested he could be. But nonetheless, he's still projecting as one of the highest volume backs in the NFL. Strong bet, in my opinion. I want to talk a little bit about this gap from Jalen Hurts to Josh Allen. While I am a huge Josh Allen stan, Jalen Hurts should not be going a full round after Josh Allen. I think that's a really big inefficiency in ADP right now. I have a lot of exposure to Jalen Hurts. While I do prefer Josh Allen, that preference is fairly marginal. So I would be comfortable taking Jalen Hurts at the 2-3 turn, right around the same range where I like to take Josh Allen. I mean, because to me, there's with the goal line usage that Jalen Hurts gets, it's just so hard for me to take him or to pass on him really in these rounds. But of course, we can't take him every time. Otherwise, we're just going to end up an injury away from just wrecking our portfolio. So yeah, so I'm not reaching on him too much, but I am well over 20% exposed to Jalen Hurts at this point. Isaiah Pacheco goes. Really like Pacheco this year. Of course, with any day three running back, there's always concern of replacement, but I have a vibes based hunch here that no real data to support this take, but I think once a day three or UDFA running back makes it past that first year or two, it's going to be. Let's think about our pick here real quick. So I'm not a huge fan of the wide receivers on the board. I am a huge Trey McBride guy, so I am going to take Trey McBride and let our opponents in the draft room decide for us as between those wide receivers. We are probably looking to take wide receiver with our next pick. Happy to take Addison, get that correlation with Justin Jefferson, even though it's not a tournament format. We've made this bet on Justin Jefferson with our first overall pick. Jefferson's going to be a banger. If we take Addison, we're basically telling the story that over the course of 17 games, the Vikings offense is going to be competent. The quarterback play will be competent. And so if we're assuming those things are true, then we are more than happy to take Addison here. So we'll double down on the Vikings bet here with Addison if we can. Absent that, Kenneth Walker is a somewhat attractive pick. Jaden Reed, a little nervous for Jaden Reed after seeing how he was used in the playoffs when Christian Watson came back and was healthy. I was very excited for what Jaden Reed could be in year two. Definitely showed some flashes as a part-time player, and if he evolves into that full-time role, we could definitely see some huge production for fantasy for Jaden Reed. But right now, I'm cooling my jets. I'm pumping the brakes a little bit just because I believe the talent's there, but the Green Bay coaching staff might not completely agree with me. So anyways, we were discussing Isaiah Pacheco. Right. Pacheco is a top 10 running back for me in my projections right now. I may be a little bit too optimistic. I have a lot of dynasty fantasy football exposure to Isaiah Pacheco. He's one of my favorite players to watch, full disclosure. I may be a little biased in that regard, but I do think that the Austin Ecklers and the Aaron Joneses of the world, that sort of filter that separates them from the Elijah Mitchells and the Damian Pierces, the Tyler Algiers, is that they make it through 2 years of usage. And we really saw Isaiah Pacheco at times last year be that bell cow. And I think it's very easy to project him for a bell cow role with Clyde Edwards-Helaire entering free agency. And I think Jerick McKinnon is also entering free agency. I'm just going to confirm that real quick. But either way, Jerick McKinnon is old as the hills. Yeah, so Jerick McKinnon also entering free agency. So Isaiah Pacheco, likely to see somebody join that backfield, but I don't think that the Chiefs, with how sharp that organization is, are likely to invest heavily in the running back position. So yeah, I'm very confident betting on Pacheco in 2024. As we're moving along here, we see Jackson Smith-Njigba bizarrely still going in the 5th round. I don't understand it. Feel free to let me know in the comments why Jackson Smith-Njigba. If you're one of the psychopaths that are pulling the trigger there, that's chaotic vibes. That's terrible vibes to me, really. What are we doing? Jackson Smith-Njigba, one of the least productive per route rookie seasons in recent memory. Really not all that far off from Quentin Johnston. Quentin Johnston gets a lot of flack for letting balls bounce off his helmet, which deservedly. People are drafting Jackson Smith-Njigba like Tyler Lockett is already signed to another team. And really, all of the moves that we've seen so far from the Seattle Seahawks, restructuring Geno Smith in particular, seems to be indicative that they are looking to compete this coming year. This isn't a reload for them. This isn't a year where they're looking to cut bait on really a high level franchise player like Tyler Lockett. Not franchise player in the same sense that he's somebody that you're building your franchise around at 31 years old, but he's been on that team for a while. And regardless of what we, the couch GMs, think, that does play a role into teams' personnel decisions. And so, as we're coming up on the clock here, DeAndre Hopkins, I'd love to take. Chris Godwin, I'd love to take. Not super excited. Tyjae Spears, pretty excited about. I could take Tyjae and hope to get Hopkins at 76. Tyjae exposure so far, actually. It's tough for me because I have Tyjae in that same tier right now as some of these free agents, like Mixon, not a free agent, but Eckler. I think he's pretty much done. I haven't been taking him despite where I have him projected and ranked. But yeah, Tyjae's in a weird spot for me where he's the top of that tier in this area and just makes it a little bit more of a difficult click for me. But so we're going to hope that Godwin or Hopkins can make it back to us, stay within that 4 wide receivers by round 7 is the ideal guardrail that I try to stay between. This time of year, though, the ADPs are so inefficient, particularly the round 8, 9, and 10 wide receivers, mostly 9 and 10 right now. They've started to creep up. People are starting to get the balls to take them, but it is definitely a tough click. And you can see that in the ADPs. There's a massive cliff right after DeAndre Hopkins goes off. For me, Brian Thomas Jr., we like to take the rookies in the pre-draft, but generally these higher end rookies are relatively overpriced. I do not think there's a huge difference between between Brian Thomas. I have on the brain, but we can get him off the board on the team. So now we've got 2 Tennessee Titans. Love that. Love that for us. So yeah, we generally like to take the rookies, but Brian Thomas Jr., Rome Odunze, Malik Neighbors, and don't get me started on where Marvin Harrison Jr. is priced. The higher end rookies are steamed up to a point where there's not a whole lot of meat left on the bone, in my opinion. Of course, Brian Thomas Jr. can be the next DK Metcalf and make me look very, very silly, but his targets per route run, very unimpressive in college. Of course, that'll happen when you're playing alongside Malik Neighbors. But generally, my approach to the rookies is that we're going to be very heavy on the later round rookies because to me, the gap from Brian Thomas Jr. to Troy Franklin, frankly, I have Troy Franklin ahead of Brian Thomas Jr. in my dynasty rookie ranks. I don't really see a huge reason why Brian Thomas Jr. should be going 2 to 3 rounds ahead of Troy Franklin. And Troy Franklin has started to creep up. Like I was saying, the cliff that exists here, you're not going to see a whole lot of orange in these picks between 77 and 92. But Romeo Doubs is going off the board in that 8th round, is basically the only wide receiver off the board. And it's like this gap where nobody wants to push up Cortland Sutton and Deontay Johnson and Marquise Brown and Troy Franklin. But those guys should be going in this range. Right now, people are clicking a whole bunch of quarterbacks and tight ends, and it's creating this weird dynamic where after DeAndre Hopkins is off the board, I'm okay pushing that 4 wide receivers by round 7 guardrail aside. And as long as we make it to 5 by 9 or even 5 by 10, and then just filling it out, especially because the pre-draft format allows for 20 rounds, we can sacrifice a little bit of quality for some more quantity. Not my recommended or preferred strategy, but it's very easy to get boxed out at wide receiver with how rooms are right now and that massive cliff in round 8. Drinking some Rusty Rail Brewing Co. Raspberry Creamsicle Fog Monster. Just an absolutely preposterous name for a beer, I have to admit, but it is fantastic. if you ever get a chance to try it. Fog Monster Black Cherry Creamsicle. People talk about how Guinness is a meal of a beer. This is a dessert of a beer. Kyler Murray, still on the board. We're looking for quarterback 1. Would love to pair him up with Trey McBride. Absolutely be ecstatic about that. Because we're not in a tournament format here, though, oh gosh, what is Cool Red Link? Red Link, 5 running backs through 7 rounds. That is, dare I say, not plus EV. That's pretty rough. If we don't get Kyler, we're pretty fine to take an unstacked Brock Purdy. Yeah, that hurts. That hurts a little bit, but I'm content to take an unstacked Brock Purdy here because we're not in a tournament format. We're just looking to get the most cumulative points over the course of 17 weeks. Brock Purdy for me is the last quarterback in that back end QB1 tier. I think quarterback pricing is relatively efficient right now. There is a feeling of getting boxed out when you get past the like Jaden Daniels is probably the last quarterback that I look at and I go, oh yeah, I'm pretty happy to take him. There are some late round values, I think, in Geno Smith, Derek Carr, Russell Wilson, even. I do think Russ is going to play most of next season. So I don't know who it'll be for. It's impossible to come up with stacking partners there. So, it's completely up in the air. Big Jacoby Myers fan, though. So, yeah, I forgot him as part of the tier of wide receivers that nobody wants to push up the board. Happy to click on him there. Jacoby did slow down over the second half of last year, but anybody who is the first ever wide receiver to post a 20% plus target share while playing alongside Devontae Adams, they're good enough to be on my best ball squad. So, sometimes you just draft good players, and that's all it takes. So looking here, probably going to aim to get our quarterback 2 in the next round or so. If we can get Caleb, be pretty happy about that. I think Matthew Stafford is a bit overpriced. Great point guard at this point in his career, but not really a fantasy contributor to a significant extent. Jared Goff, I don't know why. He just never projects well for me. I always find myself way below consensus on Jared Goff. Just steady back end QB1 every year, and not every year. Most years he's high end QB2. To sometimes he's been even worse, but that's beside the point because Caleb Williams goes. Good pick by Vaporware. So we're sitting on a 1-2-5-1 here with 2 running backs inside the top 6 rounds, 4 wide receivers inside 7, 5 by 8, no 9, 5 by 9. So we're chilling. Josh Downs still hanging out on the board. That's interesting to me. I really like Downs. He had a knee injury at one point last year. Didn't really look quite right after that. If we get a huge discount on Josh Downs, happy to take that. Chase Brown, priced like Joe Mixon, is already off the team. Oh, yeah, already off the team. I didn't get to finish raging about JSN. But yeah, Chase Brown, I don't see it. He's like a Chuba Hubbard or Ty Chandler pick with less job security, in my opinion. Less job security in the sense that he has a highly paid bell cow running back in front of him. There's rumors that Joe Mixon could be a cap casualty. The Cincinnati Bengals front office has told us through their actions the past couple of seasons that's not going to happen. I say that because Joe Mixon has faced various legal issues. Let's just leave it at that. And through it all, the Cincinnati Bengals have kept him around. He's restructured his deal. He said that any notion, any reports saying that he's going to be off the team in any capacity are, quote, clown shit. So, but speaking of reports of somebody off the team, Tyler Lockett left for dead in round 10 of best ball drafts right now. We're going to have to pump the brakes on wide receiver for a round or two, which is A-okay with me because we've got a solid top 6 here. Probably queue up Geno for later. Just got to remember to take him because he is a screaming value in my projections, but I just, for whatever reason, have never gotten around to clicking on him. So I need to up that exposure. Dallas Goedert will stop the slide if he gets to us. Same with Kmet. Happy to stop those slides. Running back 3, probably a need as well. Zamir White with the Jacoby Myers pick. Ty Chandler, we could just continue to smash the Vikings bet. Hopefully Bruce Wayne here is going to, yeah, he'll probably clean up Kmet. Hopefully. We have McBride. So not a concern. Not worried about it. We'll just take our running back. Someone else can get the Cole Kmet value. It's okay. That is the last of a tier for me, though. Wow, and Luke Musgrave. Yeah, that's another one. Okay. So JSN people are crazy. Chase Brown people, a little bit less crazy probably, but still pretty crazy in my opinion. But the Luke Musgrave people, I don't know if they just didn't watch the Packers down the stretch last year. Tucker Kraft is the tight end one there. I don't think it's really debatable. Okay, Luke Musgrave coming back from a lacerated kidney, but he was cleared to play for several weeks. And let's check out these snap shares because they were not favorable for Musgrave. I mean, Tucker Kraft was, I don't want to say balling, but he was as much as tight ends can. It's pretty hard to be a real serious baller, but I think people saw the highlights of that wide open touchdown pass that Luke Musgrave caught in the playoffs against the Cowboys and must have thought that he was back with it. And yeah, but here are Luke Musgrave's snap shares after returning from his lacerated kidney. 15%, 27%, 28%. Okay. Here, now I'm going to pull up Tucker Kraft. So Tucker Kraft, by contrast. Okay, so Luke Musgrave goes down in week 12, and we get 6 games of Tucker Kraft. In those 6 games without Luke Musgrave, he goes 96%, 95%, 100%, 95%, 92%, 82%. Luke Musgrave comes back. Oh, snap. I guess the tight end 1 for the Packers that people are drafting in the 11th round really must have taken away from Tucker Kraft snaps. No, 90%, 80%, 85%. So, I mean, maybe I'm the fish, right? Relying on this 3-game sample, post-lacerated kidney. But what are we doing, folks? Luke Musgrave is tight end 2. I'm pretty sure he lost the job. I'd bet on it. I am financially invested in that outcome. So we're pretty filled up at tight end right now. Ooh, we could just make the Kirk bet. Say Kirk's back in Minnesota. Pretty happy to make that bet if the opportunity arises. If not, Khalil Herbert, fine with me. Might take some Jerome Ford too, just because we're hearing some rumors, some buzz that maybe Nick Chubb is a cap casualty. I think that's another situation where, like Tyler Lockett, though, he's a bit of an idol to the fan base. It would be bad business to go cutting a Nick Chubb if you're the Cleveland Browns. So I don't know that that's a decision they would ever make. But hey, 28-year-old running back coming off of a serious knee injury. Stranger things have happened. We're rocking and rolling here. I gray out. So this is a strategy that I use to keep myself within the white lines when we're cruising through a draft. Gray out the wide receiver and tight end because we are set at tight end. Don't need another one. Trey McBride in round 4. Cole Kmet in round 11. Done. Don't need another one. Doesn't even matter that we have 20 rounds. One of them gets hurt. We're toast anyways. You got to draft like you're right. And Kirk Cousins at 141 is going to be a good example of that for us. We've really pushed it on running back 2. Doesn't seem, though, that this room is really keen to push running backs right now. We're definitely going to be flooding running backs for the next couple of rounds. Probably, yeah, we're going to look to go running back in 13 and 14. Unfortunately, pushing the envelope like we did, taking Tyler Lockett in round 10 to emphasize a point. Maybe Tyler Lockett could have been a Chuba Hubbard, could have been a Ty Chandler. Cole Kmet could have been a Ty Chandler or a Chuba Hubbard. But it looks like we're going to get Jerome. Bummer, Twizzler. But Bruce Wayne's going to let us have Khalil Herbert because he's such a nice guy. Right? He's a nice guy. Of course he is. Otherwise, we're fine taking Bucky Irving. Jaleel McLaughlin. Broncos were weird offensively. Okay, yeah, we're going to get Khalil Herbert. I'm not the biggest Roschon Johnson believer. I do think Khalil Herbert leads that backfield in touches next year. So, yeah, Khalil Herbert for me, great value here in around, what are we in, 13? 13, yeah. Yeah, I like how this team is turning out. Just to reiterate, in case you are losing track of where we're at, we are in a 12-team, just regular sit-and-go draft here. Drafting on Friday, February 23rd. Just wanted to sit down and do a play and explain here for you guys. Recap the team. Brock Purdy, Kirk Cousins at quarterback, Saquon Barkley, Tyjae Spears, Khalil Herbert at running back, Justin Jefferson, Stephon Diggs, Jordan Addison, DeAndre Hopkins, Jacoby Myers, and Tyler Lockett at wide receiver. Trey McBride, Cole Kmet at tight end. We're definitely going to be ripping running backs. Geno Smith might have to take Geno at 165 because Bruce Wayne here is hanging out with one quarterback, and Geno is next up. So I'm comfortable doing that. Definitely not a construction that I would be going for if we were in a regular season, post-draft 18-round league. I might even say to cap it with. Man, that is tough. I'm very tempted to just say Brock Purdy and Kirk Cousins were good. Maybe add a late round Will Levis. I actually like that better. Now that I'm looking, I have with Hop and Spears. I just think Levis is terrible. That's the problem. But we are betting that Levis isn't terrible because we have Tyjae Spears and DeAndre Hopkins. So he's at least got to be not terrible enough to screw those picks up. And I think construction-wise, if we just keep hammering running backs here, that's the way to go. So we're 7 picks away here, and we've got plenty of rookie running backs available to us. So I'm happy to take any of Bucky Braylon or Audric Estime here. No, not sure at all if I'm pronouncing Estime correctly. I've been told that it's with an A at the end, but I don't know. I don't speak French. Assuming, of course, that it is French. Um, but shout out though to whichever one of Audric Estime's family members is runs a professional training business. Every time I tweet out Audric Estime in my dynasty rookie rankings, it's the opposite energy to the Odunze family who goes around clapping back at fantasy analysts. I always get Estime trainers liking my dynasty rookie ranks, and I don't even have Audric Estime that high in my dynasty ranks. It's just spreading positive vibes. Shout out Audric Estime, seems to have been raised by a very positive, good vibes family. So getting some good vibes from Audric Estime. We are 2 picks away. We're going to get at least one of our rookie running backs here. Cool Red Link. Really struggle busing here with one quarterback with a 1760. Yeah, that's one of the benefits of drafting on a Friday night is you get some people who are they're just vibing. They didn't even know they were in a draft. So, sometimes you just let the vibes carry your draft where you will. And Bruce Wayne might take Geno here. This, I think, is why in these early pre-draft draft rooms I haven't been able to get Geno Smith, because I end up pushing the envelope one way or the other early on in draft rooms, where I take a value that sort of prohibits me from taking that QB3 this early. Bruce Wayne goes Adam Thielen. Interesting. So now that we've gotten RB4 on the roster, Tyler Algier, I think, handcuff upside alone, especially if we get Zach Robinson playing the Bobby Slowick derivative of the Shanahan tree, or a Kevin O'Connell type of McVay variation on things. I really like the handcuff upside that Algier could offer. We're definitely not going to get Geno if we pass on him here. So unfortunately, I don't know how. Okay, Algier goes. That's a decision made for us. Thank you, Bruce. I appreciate that. Okay, so we are basically looking at running back and wide receiver the rest of the draft. Curtis Samuel, available. Elijah Mitchell, available. I like to queue him up. No shot they make it back to us, but I can dream. I can dream. Let's say, hypothetically, could we do a back-to-back? No. No, the lobby is dead. So that's the struggle of cash games right now, is it is darn near impossible to catch anyone who wants to do a cash game as opposed to a big board or a little board. We're doing a $3 cash game right now, but last year, the end of season survey that Underdog sent out, I was like, hey, can we get a little bit more variety in the cash game streets? And they listened a little bit much, I think. We got now $3 cash games, $4 cash games, $5 cash games, $10 cash games in every format imaginable. And I would have liked to see just a bit more of a condensing. Just offer a 3-person, a 6-person, and a 12-person. Like, who's sitting here looking at the cash game screen and going, yeah, I'm really more of a 10-person draft kind of guy. Not that 12-person stuff doesn't interest me. And most people just want to play the 12-person, like your standard, typical fantasy football league. So I don't know. Personally, I miss the good old days when Underdog was marketed as a paid mock draft site, and the edge was all these people that were coming in psyched to prepare for their managed home league. They were like, oh yeah, Oh, I've got 7 running backs in the first 6 rounds somehow. Those were the days back before all these DFS bros came in, started playing their tournaments. Ah, old man yells at cloud. So, anyways, Curtis Samuel still hanging out in the queue, 7 picks away. Someone is going to crush my dreams because I love Curtis Samuel. Curtis Samuel as but Ray Davis is available. That's a good consolation there. It's been about a week since I drafted. I was cramming to get in before the little board closed. And Ray Davis, about a round more expensive than he was last I checked, but happy to pay that tax. Yeah, and there he goes. Curtis Samuel, hashtag good at football. I will draft him when the opportunity comes. This is another spot in the draft room. Kenneth Gainwell, highest exposure player for me in all of my drafts, all formats. Only running back on the Eagles roster. Howie does not invest in running backs heavily. DeAndre Swift, out of there. They're going to get a compensatory 4th round pick or so if he signs somewhere else, which, if you forgot, they traded a 4th round pick to get him. Yeah, DeAndre Swift, good as gone, in my opinion. Curtis Samuel goes. So my manifestation didn't work out there. J.K. Dobbins coming off torn Achilles. Not a bet I really want to make. Player I really liked this past year. The process was right. Gus Edwards. Proof in the pudding there. Oh, wow. Juwan Johnson would have been available there if I was looking for tight end. That's impressive and depressive. Man, I don't really like Trey Palmer. Jalen Hyatt. I like Tyler Boyd. That might be a controversial thing to say in 2024. We will take Dobbins. Haven't taken him yet. Think there's a semi-decent chance that he lands somewhere that gives him a chance to play. I don't know. That's a vibes-based pick there. That's my projections do not. I don't have Dobbins projected to do really anything. But when we look at just the running backs available, we got Dameon Pierce. Yeah, if he scores a kick return touchdown, he might get into your lineups this year. Antonio Gibson, similar boat, but with some practical receiving upside. I don't think that Antonio Gibson really stands much of a chance to be a fantasy impact player, but similar to the arguments we were making earlier with Saquon Barkley, it's a weak rookie class. We could see some of these free agents be a little bit more productive than we would think. Yeah. Oh, man. Yeah, I think we're just going to take Kenny Gainwell here. No real interest in really any of these other running backs. Just need to get some Kenny G in my life. This is not to be construed, for the record, as a pro Kenny Gainwell show. Okay, this was a pro Rashad Penny show last year, and a pro. I don't want to claim pro DeAndre Swift. I would take DeAndre Swift, but yeah, no, I didn't buy into the Kenny Gainwell steam, fortunately, last year. But boy, was I nervous after week 1, I'll tell you. Yeah. So yeah, we're looking at the Eagles depth chart, and we're saying, hey, Howie's not likely to invest in a whole lot. Kenneth Gainwell's there. They were prepared to use him as the starter before he got hurt. They were like, oh, DeAndre Swift is good. And yeah, so I think there's a good shot that Gainwell emerges again as at least a couple of weeks the starter there, if not the full-time guy. So Tyler Boyd, I think I'm not the type to bet on there being another this year's Adam Thielen. But if there was a this year's Adam Thielen, I think it's Tyler Boyd. Don't tell anyone. It's fine. No, but if we're going to talk about a veteran slot receiver who could go somewhere, who has a history of past production, who really only fell off, so to speak, when T. Higgins and Jamar Chase showed up. Fair? Right? I don't know. I think a lot of receivers would fall off if T. Higgins and Jamar Chase joined their team. But Tyler Boyd goes off the board. Mexican Mamba played. GG, sir. So now we are looking up 8 picks, trying to land this one in the last 3 rounds. So this is about the point in the draft where we start to reverse engineer our draft. Oh, Tyler Conklin's still on the board. Yeah. Yeah, I should have known when we saw Cole Kmet fall around or half a round past ADP that this would be a not tight end happy room. But see, this is what I mean. Russell Wilson, available at pick 204. I think Russ is going to play a full season for somebody, guys. Like, he was an issue, but he wasn't the issue last year for them. Does anyone, it's in hindsight, it's funny. 2 years ago, we were thinking, are Courtland Sutton and Jerry Jeudy the best weapons that Russell Wilson has ever had? And anyone who was thinking that, I hope they deleted their tweets, because yeah, those are some ugly receipts. But really, we're talking about Courtland Sutton and Jerry Jeudy, and at points throughout the year, it was like Brandon Johnson. No, that's a real player. I didn't just like pick a randomly generated Madden name. Okay, that's Brandon Johnson was a real wide receiver who was catching real passes and was in people's waiver wire articles last year. Russ didn't have a lot to work with. Okay, we were looking at an offense that ran 30% of its targets through Javonte Williams, Samaje Perine, and Jaleel McLaughlin. Okay, that's the highest running back target share in the league by far. That would be like trying to use your running backs as high a percentage of your offense as the Dolphins did with Tyreek Hill. I don't know, man. I think Sean Payton might just be cooked. And of course, we're full at quarterback. We cannot take a quarterback here. We'll just stop dreaming. First, engineering our draft. So we're going to, Javon Baker? Yeah, I'll take a Javon Baker here. Perfect. Easy. Slam dunk. Javon Baker, in case you're not familiar, wide receiver out of UCF. Not an early declare, which is generally a bad sign, but part of the reason for that is he was at Alabama recruit, trapped behind Jalen Waddle, Devontae Smith, and that crew. Transfers out to UCF, had a baller final year at UCF, just a deep threat king, really, close to 20 yards per reception, I want to say, his final year of college. Has some pretty sick highlight tape, if I do say so myself. People criticize watching highlight tape to get a sense of a prospect. Yeah, 21.9 yards per reception, 1,100 plus yards on 50 receptions last year. That's insane, even by college standards, right? Even playing against Big 12 defenses, I don't know, worth a sprinkle, right? Worth a sprinkle in round 18. So we're looking now. We've got Barkley as our anchor of the running back room. Tyjae Spears, Khalil Herbert, A.J. Dillon still hanging out. Ricky Pearsall hanging out. Probably looking at a 3.782. Ricky, if you follow Jetpack Galileo on Twitter, I keep saying Twitter, X, if you're one of those. Ricky Pearsall, arrogant hands, decent film prospect, not a great production profile at all. But like I said, we're at the point in the draft where we are taking sprinkles. So we're at a 3.682. I think probably running back 7 is our next need. This is where we scroll the F down. Not really, because we're not in a tournament. So being unique doesn't matter. But I do love some Ronnie Rivers. Like I was saying earlier when discussing Kyron Williams, I think there is a decent chance that the Rams go into late August, September with Ronnie Rivers as the running back two there. Uh, Ronnie Rivers is an exclusive rights free agent, which basically means that only the Rams can make an offer to him. So he'll be back with the Rams. I think there's a really good chance that that results in Ronnie Rivers being the direct handcuff to Kyron Williams, and that's a really good place to be. He was, I don't remember if he was given the opportunity really to show it. I think he got hurt. Yeah, he got hurt like the same game or the first snap of the next game after Kyron got hurt, and we saw the corpse of Royce Freeman running around. So that was a wild sight. But Ronnie Rivers, I think, is going to be a staple of round 20 for me during the pre-draft phase of 2024 best ball. Not really a big fan of Frank Gore Jr. Of course, name value, pedigree. Those are the stupidest arguments. I like when people say someone has pedigree because, first of all, people are not animals. We're like pedigree is a term used for dog breeders. What are we talking about, folks? Anyways, I digress. We're just waiting to make our Ronnie Rivers pick here at the end. I really like Isaiah Davis. Isaiah Davis got a shout out from Mel Kiper the other day on his show on ESPN as a favorite South Dakota Jackrabbit. Should come in with some decent size for me. Running backs, combine matters a decent amount. We want to see that speed score. We want to see the size and everything. Check out. So honorable mention here for Isaiah Davis. We just don't know whether he's going to be a day 3 pick. I was a noted Dwayne McBride truther last year. Y'all know Brad. Shout out Brad. Dwayne McBride, no matter what. That's Bradley Stalder. He and I were both on the Dwayne McBride train last year. And needless to say, he never saw an NFL field. So these late round wide receivers, I'm much more willing to be aggressive on the Javon Bakers and the Ricky Pearsalls of the world, as opposed to the Isaiah Davises and the Frank Gore Juniors of the world. Particularly, I don't know who's drafting Rasheen Ali, but you might want to check out what's up with his biceps. He had a ruptured biceps tendon at the Senior Bowl. So I don't know who's still drafting him, but it seems unlikely to me that he will receive significant, if any, draft capital just based on that injury. And even if he does get drafted, he's unlikely to be ready for rookie minicamp and training camp and all of those key times when rookies tend to shine and rise up the depth chart. So that'll about do it for this one, guys. We are looking at a 3-7-8-2 with an unstacked Brock Purdy. Just taking the value there on my projections. Stacked Brock Purdy, Kirk Cousins, Geno Smith in the quarterback room. We've got Saquon Barkley, Tyjae Spears, Khalil Herbert, Audric Estime, J.K. Dobbins, Kenneth Gainwell, Ronnie Rivers, Justin Jefferson, Stephon Diggs, Jordan Addison, Andre Hopkins, Jacoby Myers, Tyler Lockett, Javon Baker, Ricky Pearsall, and at tight end we've got Trey McBride and Cole Kmet. Thanks for coming in, guys. Thanks for hanging out with me for this past hour or so. Appreciate y'all coming to the channel. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a comment down below. Tell me how dumb I am for taking unstacked Brock Purdy. Tell me how sharp I am for knowing, of course, that Kirk Cousins is going to be back with the Vikings, or wait a couple of weeks and tell me how dumb I am for that too. Either way, guys, this has been a blast. Hoping to do a couple more of these throughout the pre-draft process for you guys. So yeah, I will be taking another couple week hiatus though, because we are My wife and I are heading out on vacations. Until next time, guys, thanks for listening and spread some good vibes. Peace.